Welcome back to the channel Liberty Coin Value, today's deep exploration where we take you on a journey through one of the most fascinating coins in American numismatic history, the 1967 1-cent USA coin, a piece of copper that on the surface appears like any ordinary Lincoln Memorial cent but has become surrounded by tales of rarity, mysterious minting practices, and astronomical value claims, with some examples reportedly being valued at an unbelievable $876 million due to a combination of minting mistakes, striking anomalies, and unique historical circumstances that transformed what should have been a common penny into a legend of unimaginable worth. And to understand why this coin carries such intrigue, we must step back into the context of 1967 itself, a year filled with social change, a year when the Vietnam War was ongoing, when American culture was shifting, and importantly for coin collectors, when the U.S. Mint was still reeling from the coin shortages of the early 1960s. And had temporarily suspended the use of mint marks in order to discourage hoarding by collectors who in previous years would scoop up coins from different mints, leading to scarcity in circulation. And so every cent from 1965 to 1967 was struck without a mint mark, regardless of whether it was produced in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. Which alone adds a layer of mystery to these coins, because the lack of mint marks makes it nearly impossible to immediately determine their place of origin. But the real fascination begins when we discuss the era coins, because 1967 pennies were produced in the billions, with the mint focused on sheer quantity rather than perfection, meaning that many striking mistakes slipped through quality control, and these are the varieties that collectors today hunt for, because errors can range from double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes, and die cracks, all of which turn a 1-cent coin into a treasure. And when we hear claims of a single coin being worth $876 million, it is of course not an everyday circulation piece but a representation of the ultimate rarity, an example rumored to possess a combination of multiple errors and unique minting quirks that no other coin possesses. And collectors know that when a coin exhibits a one-of-a-kind error, its value skyrockets into the stratosphere. For rarity is the foundation of numismatic worth, and in the case of the 1967 1 cent, there are many possibilities that drive its desirability, one being the double die obverse, where Lincoln's portrait shows doubling in his eye, beard, and inscriptions, with "I in God we trust" or "Liberty" visibly doubled, and such coins have always been highly sought after, because doubling errors require a misalignment in the die creation process, and not many survive in circulation before being noticed and pulled aside by sharp-eyed collectors. Another possibility involves off-center strikes where the coin is struck with the design misaligned, leaving part of the planchet blank and creating a highly unusual appearance, with extreme off-center strikes showing less than half of the design being among the most desirable. And then there are clipped planchets where part of the metal blank was cut improperly, resulting in coins with crescent-shaped cuts missing from their edges, and these are always conversation pieces among collectors. While broad strikes are another error where the retaining collar fails during striking, causing the coin to spread out wider than normal, often with incomplete rims and a dramatic distorted appearance. But perhaps the most captivating are transitional errors, those rare instances where a coin is struck on the wrong metal planchet. For example, there have been tales of 1967 cents accidentally struck on silver dime planchets or on foreign coin blanks, and when such pieces surface, their value is immeasurable because they represent a genuine mishap in the minting process that should never have left the facility. And combining this with the suspension of mint marks during the mid-1960s adds further intrigue, because collectors debate whether certain rare examples may secretly reveal clues about which mint struck them through subtle dime markers, making these coins effectively unique identifiers of history. And with every possibility of rarity considered, one can see how legends grow, and how in the numismatic world stories emerge of a single coin being valued not just in the thousands or millions but in fantastical numbers like $876 million, because the concept of value in collectibles is not always tied strictly to rational economics but also to desirability, fame, and the willingness of collectors to outbid one another for the privilege of owning something no one else on earth possesses. And if you consider the auction market, there have been coins such as the 1933 Double Eagle gold coin, which sold for more than $18 million, or the 1794 flowing hair dollar, which sold for more than $10 million, showing that coins can indeed reach sky-high prices. And when a story is attached, when myths and rarity converge, the value can exceed comprehension, And so with the 1967 penny, while most people see just a copper cent, dedicated numismatists see endless possibilities, such as double-die varieties known as FS101 or FS102. Repunch dates where the number 1967 shows shadows of re-engraving, die breaks resulting in raised extra metal across Lincoln's face. Or the memorial reverse, and even struck-through errors where foreign objects such as fabric, wire, or grease got between the die and planchet leaving permanent impressions. All these variations make each coin unique and push its collectability upward, and in the highest possible condition, with blazing red luster preserved since minting, these coins can grade MS-67 or MS-68 on the Sheldon scale, which alone places them into the thousands of dollars, and when you combine high grade with dramatic error, you step into the realm of incredible value, and if that error is one of a kind, the price is theoretically limitless. And this is where the tale of the $876 million penny emerges, for if such a coin exists, it represents not only the ultimate error but also the ultimate story, a piece of history that collectors dream about, a coin that brings together the suspension of mint marks, the minting pressure of the 1960s, the technological limitations of the era, and the fact that billions were struck yet only one may hold the exact combination of anomalies that create this masterpiece of rarity. And in storytelling traditions within the numismatic community, such legendary coins become like the Holy Grail, inspiring searches, encouraging everyday people to check their pocket change, sparking the imagination of treasure hunters, and reminding us that sometimes even the smallest, most overlooked object can hold unimaginable value, and whether or not the $876 million valuation is a myth, an exaggeration, or a symbol of ultimate rarity, it captures the spirit of collecting. Because collectors do not simply chase money, they chase stories, they chase the feeling of holding history in their hands, of uncovering something no one else has, and the 1967 1-cent penny offers exactly that, a window into a turbulent time in American history. A canvas for minting mistakes that delight error enthusiasts, and a coin whose supposed worth far beyond its face value keeps it alive in the conversations of numismatists around the world. And so as we explore deeper into the catalog of possible 1967 errors, we can imagine how a cent could climb in value to such extremes, because when you have a coin struck on a wrong planchet, perhaps a silver dime blank, with a double die obverse, an off-center strike, and a struck-through object all in one, you are looking at a true one-of-a-kind artifact. Something beyond price guides, beyond market charts, something that becomes priceless. Because it cannot be compared, and when something is priceless, it can theoretically be worth any number the market decides, even $876 million, because value is ultimately determined by desire and scarcity, and if just two collectors with nearly limitless resources compete for it, the price can soar without limit. And this is why the 1967 penny story continues to fascinate, because every detail from the missing mint marks, the flood of billions of coins, the shortcuts taken at the mint, and the errors that slip through tells us that somewhere in the world may lie a coin unlike any other, and until it is found or confirmed, the dream lives on, inspiring all of us to look closely at every coin we hold, for the next penny you encounter could carry not just 1 cent of spending power but the weight of history and the sparkle of unimaginable fortune, and in that way, the 1967 1-cent USA coin is more than just currency, it is a reminder that hidden treasures exist in the most ordinary of places, waiting to be discovered, appreciated, and maybe one day, to make history again by setting the record for the most valuable coin ever known, a coin claimed to be worth $876 million and forever etched in the imagination of collectors around the globe. Today's deep exploration into one of the most fascinating stories in American numismatics, the 1983 1-cent United States coin, a humble Lincoln cent that carries a face value of just a single penny, yet has become the subject of extraordinary attention, speculation, and collector frenzy because of a unique combination of errors, minting mistakes, and rare variations that elevate certain examples to astronomical valuations, with some reports and numismatic discussions even assigning a staggering estimated worth of $677 million to specific pieces, making it not only a coin of interest to casual collectors but also one of the most talked about rarities in the entire world of coin collecting. And in this script we are going to embark on an exhaustive journey that covers the history of the 1983 penny, the reasons why it is different from earlier and later cents, the background of the United States Mint's production practices during this time, the role of mint mark anomalies, double dies, planchet errors, off-center strikes, transitional errors, and how these all contribute to the incredible valuation that places this coin far beyond its 1 cent face value and into the realm of treasure that could change the life of anyone lucky enough to discover one in their pocket change, coin jar, or inherited collection. And as we dive into this monumental story, we should start by reminding ourselves that 1983 came just 1 year after one of the most significant changes in the composition of the Lincoln cent, because in 1982 the United States Mint officially switched the cent's composition from 95% copper and 5% zinc, a formulation that had been in place since 1909 when the Lincoln cent first appeared, to a much more cost-effective copper-plated zinc planchet consisting of 97.5% zinc with only a thin 2.5% copper coating. And this change was due to the skyrocketing cost of copper, which meant the metal content of the coin was worth more than its face value, so the mint had to act, and 1982 was a transition year where both copper cents and zinc cents were minted, creating confusion, variation, and opportunities for errors that spilled into 1983, which was the first full year of official zinc-only production. But as with any major transition in minting history, mistakes happen. And those mistakes are what drive collectors' imaginations and the incredible valuations tied to coins like the 1983 penny. So when we talk about why the 1983 cent can be worth $677 million in the right circumstances, we are really talking about the intersection of rarity, condition, error types, and collector demand, all of which create a perfect storm of value. To understand this in depth, consider that the 1983 cent exists in two main categories: Philadelphia mint coins with no mint mark and Denver mint coins with the D mint mark, and both of these have their own varieties of errors. But among the most famous is the 1983 double die reverse, a variety where the reverse lettering, especially 1 cent and E pluribus unum, shows strong doubling caused by a die-making error at the mint, and this variety is considered one of the most spectacular double dies of the modern era, with even circulated examples commanding significant premiums from collectors, and in pristine mint state condition this variety can reach tens of thousands of dollars at auction. But what if such a coin also carried other anomalies, such as a wrong planchet strike? Or perhaps an unintentional survival of a copper planchet from 1982 that was mistakenly used in 1983, which would make it a transitional error, one of the most desirable types of mint mistakes, and indeed numismatic researchers and graders have confirmed that a very small number of 1983 cents were in fact struck on leftover copper planchets instead of the intended zinc, instantly making those pieces incredibly rare, because they represent a crossover between two eras of coinage, and this is exactly the type of situation that turns a 1 cent piece into something of immeasurable value. And when collectors and investors compete for such coins, prices can skyrocket into realms that seem almost unimaginable, leading to stories of multi-million-dollar valuations and the sensational claim of a $677 million specimen, which, though extraordinary and speculative, reflects the awe-inspiring potential of error coins in the marketplace. Furthermore, beyond double dies and transitional errors, 1983 cents are known to exhibit off-center strikes where the design is misaligned with the planchet, broad strikes where the coin is struck outside the collar creating a stretched appearance, clipped planchets where a blank metal disc was improperly cut leaving a crescent-shaped missing piece, and die cracks where the die itself was fractured causing raised lines on the coin's surface. And though many of these errors are relatively minor, and may bring only modest premiums, in combination with major recognized varieties like the double die reverse or transitional copper planchet, they contribute to the mythology of the 1983 cent as a hotbed of minting anomalies, and in the collecting world mythology translates into heightened demand, which in turn drives value. To fully appreciate the claim of $677 million, one must consider the psychology of collectors and investors, because coins like this represent not only numismatic rarity but also cultural artifacts, tangible connections to history, and vehicles of speculation, and when a coin achieves legendary status, its valuation becomes less about strict market logic and more about narrative power, desirability, and scarcity combined. So when we talk about a 1983 cent worth hundreds of millions of dollars, we are engaging in a storytelling tradition that mirrors the tales of sunken treasure, lost artifacts, and legendary diamonds, because it is that sense of rarity, mystery, and discovery that captivates the imagination of millions and compels people to search through their pocket change in hopes of uncovering the next great find. Now, when discussing mint mark errors specifically, the 1983 D penny from Denver has its own array of intriguing issues, such as repunched mint marks where the D appears doubled or distorted due to the hand-punching process that was still in use before the mid-1990s, and such varieties, while perhaps less dramatic than a doubled die reverse, still command premiums and are highly collectible, especially in high-grade examples certified by grading companies like PCGS or NGC. And if you were to imagine a coin that combined multiple desirable errors, such as a 1983 D penny struck on a copper planchet, with a double die reverse, and an off-center strike all in pristine condition, you would have a one-of-a-kind specimen, the kind of coin that could become the centerpiece of the most prestigious collections and set auction records that dwarf any previous sale, thereby justifying astronomical valuations such as $677 million, because in numismatics the value of an item is ultimately determined not by its face value or metal content, but by what someone is willing to pay for it, and in the case of once-in-a-lifetime rarities, there is effectively no ceiling. Another key factor to consider is the role of third-party grading and certification, because in today's market, coins that are authenticated, attributed, and graded by leading services like Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, command far higher premiums than raw, uncertified examples. And the 1983 double die reverse or transitional error cents that have been encapsulated in holders with grades such as MS65 red or higher are the ones that attract the fiercest bidding wars, and if an extraordinary specimen were discovered and certified as not only genuine but also possessing an unprecedented combination of traits, its value could easily leap into realms that make headlines around the world. Additionally, the 1983 cent sits at a fascinating crossroads in American coinage history, because it represents the first full year of zinc-based cents, a transition that was unpopular with the public who noticed that the new cents felt lighter and cheaper compared to the traditional copper coins, and this adds a layer of cultural nostalgia and historical significance to the coin. Because owning a 1983 penny, especially one with an error, is like holding a piece of that controversial transition in your hand, a reminder of how economic forces shape our currency, and this historical weight adds intangible value to the coin that cannot be measured in dollars alone but contributes to the perception of it as a treasure worth guarding. Beyond the specific known errors, collectors also speculate on the possibility of as yet undiscovered varieties, because minting is a complex industrial process subject to countless variables. And the idea that there may still be a 1983 cent out there with a unique combination of features waiting to be found fuels the excitement, and justifies the incredible valuations assigned to these coins in numismatic folklore. Consider also that while most people see the penny as virtually worthless in daily commerce, collectors see it as a canvas of history, artistry, and mystery, and when a penny transcends its ordinary role and becomes a legendary rarity, its value becomes symbolic, representing not just monetary worth but also the thrill of discovery, the pride of ownership, and the preservation of history. And in that symbolic sense, a $677 million valuation, while extreme, becomes a reflection of the cultural power that such coins hold. Auction history further supports this narrative, because we have seen coins like the 1933 Double Eagle, a $20 gold piece, sell for over $18 million, and the 1794 Flowing Hair silver dollar reach nearly $10 million, proving that coins can indeed achieve values far beyond their face worth when rarity, demand, and story align, so extrapolating we often overlook in our daily lives can carry a history, a mystery, and a value far beyond imagination, because in this video we are going to unravel the details, the history, and the fascinating twists surrounding the 2001 United States 1-cent coin. A coin with a face value of just a penny but with rare varieties and minting anomalies that collectors and experts believe could make certain examples worth an astronomical $657 million. And that incredible value is not just a random number thrown around but tied to the idea of minting errors, striking mistakes, and extremely rare mint mark variations that make some of these coins rarities beyond compare. And in order to appreciate why such an ordinary-looking coin could fetch such an extraordinary price, we need to go all the way back to the foundations of the Lincoln Cent series and understand what makes 2001 such a curious year for coinage. Because the Lincoln Cent, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, has long been a staple of American pocket change, yet over the decades it has gone through subtle design modifications, metal composition changes, and countless minting errors that have become prized possessions in the hands of collectors, and by 2001 the coin had already cemented itself as a historic icon. Still bearing the familiar obverse portrait of President Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner, with the reverse featuring the Lincoln Memorial, a design used from 1959 through 2008. But what truly sets the 2001 cent apart are the unexpected mistakes that occurred during its minting at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, each with their own quirks that open the door to extraordinary rarity, because error coins are the accidents of the minting world. Little deviations from perfection that slip past quality control and find their way into circulation. And while most pennies from 2001 are common, produced by the billions, only a tiny handful with certain dramatic errors or unique features could command values in the hundreds of millions. And when collectors talk about the $657 million valuation, it is not because every 2001 penny is worth that much, but rather because one unique specimen or small group of them with the most dramatic and unexplained anomalies could hold such a theoretical or auction-based value if the right circumstances were met. So what kinds of errors are we talking about? Well, to begin with, there are the double die obverse and reverses, where the coin shows doubling of the lettering or the portrait due to misalignment in the die hubbing process. And in 2001 reports surfaced of strong double dies where I In God We Trust, Liberty, and even Lincoln's profile show distinct doubling, and these coins in high mint state condition are already highly desirable. But imagine a dramatic example with nearly flawless preservation and a bold error. It could skyrocket in value. Then there are off-center strikes, coins struck when the blank planchet was not seated properly in the coining press, leading to Lincoln's portrait being partially cut off or shifted. And while minor off-centers are fun, major off-centers with clear dates and mint marks are exponentially rarer. Now add to that the dramatic broad strikes where the coin expands beyond its intended rim, or die caps where a coin sticks to the die and strikes multiple planchets, creating layered distorted pieces, and suddenly you begin to see how 2001 pennies could turn into priceless rarities. And perhaps the most intriguing category are the mint mark anomalies, because in 2001 both Philadelphia and Denver mints produced circulation strikes while San Francisco produced proofs, and within that there are reports of repunched mint marks, where the D for Denver was struck more than once slightly offset, creating a visible doubling. And even transitional errors where planchets meant for other denominations or earlier years were accidentally struck with the 2001 Lincoln cent design, such as a cent struck on a dime planchet, or on an experimental alloy leftover from testing phases. And each one of these errors adds a layer of potential value, and when combined with pristine condition, rarity, and collector frenzy, you arrive at a scenario where a single 2001 penny could theoretically fetch $657 million, because numismatic value is not always tied to intrinsic metal value but rather to rarity, demand, and historical intrigue. And let's consider the context of coin collecting at the turn of the millennium, because the year 2001 was right at the height of the U.S. mint's booming popularity with collectors thanks to the state quarters program. Millions of people were suddenly paying attention to coins again, and in that climate any unusual Lincoln cent was noticed, documented, and in some cases hoarded. And as those specimens aged, their legend grew, and when you combine public fascination with scarcity and the dramatic headlines surrounding high-value auctions of other rare coins, such as the 1933 Double Eagle selling for millions, it becomes easier to understand why a rare 2001 cent could theoretically be valued at $657 million. But beyond the economics, let's really break down the types of possible mistakes, starting with die errors, which include double dies, repunched mint marks, die cracks, cuds, and die clashes, and in 2001, examples of die cracks running across Lincoln's head or the reverse lettering have been noted, some forming dramatic raised lines that collectors nickname lightning bolts. And then there are cut errors where part of the die breaks off, leaving a missing blank area on the coin's design, and die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring design elements onto the opposite side of the coin, all of which create unique one-of-a-kind coins. And then you have striking errors like multiple strikes, off centers, brockages, and indents, each of which can transform an ordinary penny into something spectacular. And finally you have planchet errors like wrong planchet strikes, clips, laminations, and alloy mixes. And if a 2001 penny was struck on a steel planchet by mistake, or if a fragment of another coin was struck into it, it could easily become a numismatic marvel. and collectors love the chase for such rarities, always dreaming that the next penny they find in pocket change could be the one worth a fortune, and that dream is part of what fuels the astronomical valuation, because a coin valued at $657 million is not only about the physical metal but also about the story, the narrative, the myth, and the thrill of owning a one-of-a-kind piece of minting history. And when you think about it, numismatics is as much about storytelling as it is about tangible value. Because every coin carries the history of its era, the decisions of engravers, the mistakes of machinery, and the passage of millions of hands in circulation, and the 2001 penny is a perfect example of how that history can collide with era-driven rarity to create a legend. And though the vast majority of 2001 pennies will never be worth more than a cent, the possibility that one of them could be the holy grail of era coins worth $657 million keeps the numismatic community buzzing. And it raises questions about what value truly means, because a coin that cost a fraction of a cent to mint could one day sell for more than entire treasuries of nations, and that paradox captures the imagination of collectors, investors, and dreamers alike. And if you think about the future, as more and more people become interested in rare coins through online marketplaces and YouTube channels like this one, the demand for era coins will only grow, and the legend of the 2001 cent will continue to expand. Especially if a headline-grabbing sale ever occurs that cements its $657 million valuation in reality. And so as we conclude this exploration, remember that the 2001 Lincoln cent, a coin you might casually overlook, could carry within it secrets of the minting process, anomalies of production, and a potential that defies its humble denomination, making it one of the most fascinating coins in U.S. history, and one that proves beyond doubt that in numismatics, the smallest details can create the biggest treasures. So keep looking at your change, keep searching through rolls of pennies, and never underestimate the power of a tiny coin to hold a story and a value that reaches into the hundreds of millions.